各位业界先进，大家好，这里是曼谷台湾贸易中心，我是张优良，很高兴在泰国和各位连线。泰国是中国大陆以外第一个出现新冠肺炎确诊病例的国家。自今年1月13日爆出首例后，3月起疫情暴增。3月26日，官方发布了紧急状态令，最初预定在4月30日截止，但经过多次的展延，那到现在已经是第8度的延长。这次延长紧急状态令的期限是到明年的1月15。那么截至12月9日，泰国境内累计的确诊病例数达到4151例，其中包含60例的死亡案例。其实各位可以从新闻报道中看见，泰国疫情并不像周边其他东协和南亚的国家来的严峻。起因于官方在疫情爆发的初期就下令关闭大型的商场、百货公司、电影院、拳击馆、酒吧、各种娱乐场所等人潮容易聚集并且近距离接触的地方，尤其是对边境以及国内交通的管制发挥了很大的作用。当然，这些不得已的措施也对一向仰赖观光收入的泰国造成莫大的冲击。泰国的丰富文化资源是泰国观光业发展的重要基础，观光业直接或间接的收入合计加起来占全国 GDP 达到 22%， 仅就直接的观光收入统计就占泰国 GDP 近 14%。2019年，泰国约吸引了3970万境外游客，其中以来自中国大陆的1100万观光客占最大宗。那么根据泰国国家经济和社会发展理事会11月底做的统计，今年第2季的泰国 GDP 下降了 12.1%， 是近20年来最大的跌幅。那么第3季的下降的速度减缓，降幅也在 6.4% 左右。那么这归功于大部分国内活动的限制的放宽，不过持续的旅行禁令也使大多数的外国观光客望而却步。那有许多人说泰国是一个幸福的国度，那其实这是针对他当地的人民而言。泰国是佛教国家，人民性情淳朴、善良且乐于助人。虽然说幸福，那其实泰国也是多灾多难。我们可以从它的 GDP 走势就看得出来，包括数次的政局动荡以及天然灾害，像是2011年的水患，都对整个泰国的经济造成严重的打击。那么如今面对起起伏伏的疫情以及多次的反政府示威的活动，那泰国的官方可以说是蜡烛两头烧。不过对抗疫情仍是目前首要的任务，那许多泰国的大型集团也投入防疫产品的生产，那其中也包括检测试剂的研发。不过以整体检测试剂而言，泰国的进口量还是远大于出口。那刚刚提到检测试剂，那么今天也很荣幸邀请到泰国医疗器材工会 ThaiMed 的理事长 Mr. Preecha 来为各位解说泰国检测试剂目前市场的现况。那么接下来我们就把镜头交给 Mr. Preecha。
First of all, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Preecha Bhandtivej. I'm the chairman of ASEAN Federations of Medical Devices Industry, the president of Thai Medical Device Technology Industry Associations. Today, we will talk about the import regulation of COVID-19 test kit. The content will be covered. The first one is recent COVID-19 situation in Thailand. The second, regulations on exporting test kits from Taiwan to Thailand. The third one is test kit demand in Thailand. The fourth topic will be suggestion for Taiwanese manufacturer of test kit. We will cover all 4 topics. The situations for the COVID as till yesterday. The yesterday report allowed the world, we have about 52 million population who have infection with the coronavirus. And you can see the number one around the world is USA. The second one is from India. The third one is Brazil, and the fourth one France, and the number fifth ranking is Russia. Thailand is ranking number 149. Currently, we have the number of the patient till today is 3,852 population, the patient. Okay, so around the world, we have serious condition is 59,000 patient, and already recovery 36 million population, and already dead, okay, from the COVID-19 is more than 1 million population now. The next slide is the report till yesterday, COVID-19 situation in Thailand. Yesterday, we have the new COVID, new patients, 5 patients, and the patients starting from the beginning of this year till today, we have 3,852 cases, and already recover 3,693. The people or the patients still in the hospital, 99 people, 99 patients, and we already have a patient dead from the COVID, 60 case. Yesterday, we have a new 5 case. Most of the case, they came from, one is Germany, and one from Sweden, one from Iran, and one from Kenya, and one from Switzerland. We have a new cases. And then when the tourists or the people want to come to Thailand, we have state quarantine. Currently, we have the people who are in the state quarantine, 894 people. And then if you break down the number of the patient, okay, on the bottom of the slide, we have 2,108 patients in Bangkok and nearby Bangkok area. In the northern part, 104 cases. In the central part, 771 cases. And in the northeastern part is 112 cases. And in the southern, 747. This is the situation of COVID-19 in Thailand as today. Okay. So the next slide, we will talk about the import regulation of the COVID-19 test kit, okay, in Southeast Asia or in Thailand. So this is the COVID-19 testing. The report is from Department of Medical Sciences. You can see at the beginning, from the beginning till 8 November, we have already accumulated testing for the COVID-19 testing 1,246,192 samples. Okay, in Thailand we have 236 laboratories for COVID testing. This report, we got the report from only 200 laboratories from 236 laboratories. So we have already tested 1,246,192 samples starting from the beginning till 8 November. You can see in Thailand, we break down the area into 13 areas. Area 1, Area 2, Area 3, Area 4, 5, until to Area 11. They break down by provinces, okay? You can see some area, okay, we have the case. Some area, we have no report, okay, the COVID. Okay, this is only give you the idea that the government collect all the testing and all the report from all the provinces in Thailand. Next slide, you can see, okay, they collect the sample and then they test in each area in the 200 laboratory and testing for the COVID-19 detection rate. Okay, so we can see that we bring the sample, okay, and then how many cases that is positive. It means that currently we have the report to 3,852 cases, yeah, from the accumulated testing 1,246,192 sample. Okay. This is a private hospital also. The private hospital also collect the fluid, okay, and testing for the COVID-19 testing also. You can see the reagents. We have a two type, RNA detections and RT-PCR. So you can see the number of the sample breakdown by RNA extraction and RT-PCR testing. RNA extraction is allowed 305,714 testing. And for the RT-PCR is 406,531 tests. You can see now the many hospitals, they have to import and bring in the machine for the RT-PCR testing. So they have many brand name, many reagents, many testing. And currently we have 236 laboratory testing for the COVID-19 testing in Thailand. We can break down, you see, COVID-19 laboratory, we have break down by Bangkok. Bangkok, we break down by government hospital and the private hospital. Bangkok, we have 37 hospital and 51 private hospital. Up country, it means outside Bangkok area. We have 121 government hospital and 28 private hospital. The total for the country under the government hospital, 158 laboratory for lab testing and 79 private hospital for the COVID-19 laboratory for testing. This is the list of the hospital that they can do the testing for the COVID-19. So we break down the first column will be the government 37 laboratory and private. The second column is the private hospital 51. Okay, this under Bangkok area and nearby Bangkok area, total 88 laboratory. On the third column and the fourth column is the government hospital outside Bangkok. They have 121 laboratory, and the last column is the private hospital, 20 hospital. The total for up-country area is 149 laboratory. For the COVID-19 test, you can see the COVID-19 test approved by from the Thai FDA. It means that the product already registered with the Thai FDA, and currently they import the product and sell into the Thai market. The report update on the November 9 this month. Okay, November 9 November 2020. So you can see the type of the test kit. The first one is RT-PCR. Already got the approval, already got the license, 63 product. Antibody or automation, 7 product. Antibody for rapid test, 18 product. Antigen rapid test, 1 product. So this is the product already got the approval from the Thai FDA and available for use in the laboratory. So the criteria, the first one is the criteria of, to get the approval for the RT-PCR. When you submit the sample or the document, the expert or the Thai FDA will review your paper and then they will test your sample. So the first one, the criteria should be analytic sensitivity is not more than 1,000 copy per mil. And for the primer probe, for the specificity should be only for the COVID-19, not cause reaction rate, okay, with another virus. They will have the guideline for you, okay? They will test, and if the product pass the criteria, this product will get the approval from the Thai FDA. So I give you the detail. RT-PCR, the product that already approved from the Thai FDA. The first, the T list, the first T list, the second column is the product name, and the third column is the importer. So this is the criteria for the COVID-19 that the Thai FDA will looking on the analytic sensitivity and the specificity, okay, on the sample that the manufacturer or the importer have to submit to Thai FDA. So if the sample pass the test and meet the standard or meet the criteria, the product will get the approval from the Thai FDA. This is the list of the product that already got the approval from Thai FDA for the RT-PCR. The second column is the name of the product. The third column is the name of the importer. And the fourth column is the name of the manufacturer. You can see the manufacturer is Singapore, China, and then the last column is the date of the approval. It means that they got the approval on the, like example, for the first one, they got the approval on 23rd on March this year. Okay, and the number two is the product from China already approved on 23rd March this year also. Okay, you can see all the product. Okay, some product is from Korea, some product is from China, some product is from Germany, some product is from Spain. You can see some product is from UK, Malaysia, some product from China. Most of the product is from China. Okay, yeah, Korea, USA also, Germany. Yeah, you can from Spain, USA, Germany. Yeah, you can see all the product. Yeah, you can see. You can go to later. I give you the presentation. Yeah, you can see the product from RT-PCR already got the approval for sale in Thailand. 63 product from many manufacturers, and the product already registered in Thailand for sale. This for the RT-PCR. Okay, so now we come to the antibody for the automation. Okay, or rapid test. They use the same criteria. They will consider on three part. One is the diagnostic sensitivity. If you have to provide the sample is more than 50, N is 50 sample, and then if the evaluation you have the sensitivity more than 85%, you will have approval for the sensitivity, and specificity it should be more than 98%. Okay, and then they will take on non-specific. It should be less than 10%. N is the number of the test. Okay, so you can see the antibody automation. The product already approved. You can see the name of the product, and then the third column is the name of the importer, And then the fourth column is the name of the manufacturer and the date of the approval. So you can see, yeah, we have 7 products for the antibody testing automation. And then you also have the antibody rapid testing. You can see the same, the product name, importer, and then the manufacturer, they have a China, USA, and then the date of the approval. So many products. Yeah, you can see some product came from Swiss, some product came from China, Hangzhou. Yeah, total, you can see the total is the 18 rapid test antibody already approved for sale in Thailand. So now we come to the antigen. If the testing is use the antigen, so they will have the criteria for the diagnostic sensitivity, diagnostic specificity, and then non-specificity and limit of detection, LOD. So the number of the tests for the first one is more than 50 tests, and the second one is more than 100 tests, and then the third one is the more than 20 tests. So the diagnostic sensitivity should be more than 90%, and then specificity is more than 98%, and non-specificity is less than 10%. If the sample is past this criteria, the product will get the approval. So for the antigen, is only one product. Okay, this one is the product is the local product, is product from Thailand. Okay, so only one. Okay, to test for the antigen for the rapid test. So you can see that clearly the case in Thailand is not increased. Okay, only few cases per day. Okay, and then everything is under control. And then for the COVID-19 test kit already get the approval. You can see that many product, many type of product already got the approval. You can see the number of the approval of the license. RT-PCR 69 product, antigen 1 product, rapid test, antibody on automation 7 product, antibody rapid test 18 product. So I think it's more than 100. Yeah, more than 100 now. So next procedure. Next is the procedure. When you want to bring in the product, what to do? Okay, you have to bring the product for the testing for 200 tests. You have to apply with the Thai FDA to import the sample, 200 sample for test. Okay, and then you have to pay the fee 100 baht. Okay, and then after you submit them, so they will have the team for, we call the medical technology assessment team. They will bring the sample. Okay, and then you have to apply for the testing with them. You have to pay 100 baht. Okay, and then after that, Thai FDA will give you the document. Okay, and then pass all the sample for testing with the laboratory, and then they will, if the product you pass the criteria that I already mentioned about the sensitivity, specificity. Okay, and then the Thai FDA will issue you the license, and then you can import. When they approve, you have to pay 1,000 baht. Okay, for the license. This is the procedure. Simple. You have to bring in the product. You apply. Okay, that you want to bring in the sample for test. You have to bring in 200 tests. You pay 100 baht. And then after you want to bring in, you have to fill the form for the medical technology assessment team to test your product. You have to pay 100 baht. And after that, the Thai FDA will give you the letter that, okay, the product is on evaluation. They pass all everything to the laboratory for testing. as per the criteria. And then if the product is passed the criteria, so the Thai FDA will issue you the license, and then you pay 1,000 baht. This is the process, okay, to get the license. Okay, this is the step. Okay, for if you want to bring in the product or you want to export the real-time RT-PCR, so they have the 5 steps. Okay, you have to fill the form. Okay, if you don't have the place for import the product to import the product, you have to register the company here. Okay, and then you have to get the approval. After you get the approval, you can bring in the sample. Okay, for the RT-PCR, you have to bring in 100 tests, and then go to the second step. Okay, you have to fill the form. Okay, for the medical technology assessments, for evaluations. So you have to pay 100 baht, and then it takes time about 5 days. Okay, you see the red color 5 days, and then Thai FDA will issue you the letter, and then bring the sample to the lab for testing. And then if the product is passed, okay, you pay 1,000 baht, okay, on the step 5. If not passed, okay, they will give you the result, okay, that your product could not register, okay, for importation. Okay, for the same, okay, if you want to import the real-time RT-PCR, okay, and then sometimes you don't have some document, or maybe you don't have the free sale certificate. Okay, so they will have another way, okay, that you can register your company here, okay, and then import the product, and then you register apply for the product for evaluation by the medical technology assessment. And then after that, after the committee review the document, if pass the evaluation, you have to pay 1,000 baht. Okay, so this is the for the testing. Okay, this for the antibody test kit. So it looks like the same. Okay, you apply for the test, but you have to bring in 200 tests. The difference is 200 tests. The step is the same. Okay, but if you pass the criteria, you will get the license, and you pay 1,000 baht for the step 5. If you not pass, they will report to you, okay, why you not pass for the registrations. Okay, antigen the same. Okay, look like the same. You have to apply for the testing. Okay, and then if the test is passed, because sometimes they have to consult the expert. Okay, and let the expert review the paper. Okay, and then if you pass, you will get the license. If not pass, the Thai FDA will report to you. Okay, so what to do? Okay, during you want to import, okay, for the Taiwanese manufacturer, I suggest that you have to looking for the good partner. If you have the good partner and expert in the field, it make your shorter time to bring in the product. Okay, and then you can sell the product in Thailand. Okay, so what they need the documents. First, they want the free sale certificate. Okay, issued by the manufacturer country. The first one. The second one, they need the stability test. The third one, they need the device description about the detail, how to use the product, all the thing. Okay, and then the fourth, they want to know the manufacturing process. And the fifth, when you want to bring in the product, how about your label? Okay, they want to see device labeling. Okay, and then you have to have the copy of the document that you import the sample for testing. Okay, if you have complete six item, okay, and then you can issue for the medical technology assessment for evaluation. If the laboratory could not testing your product, so what to do? Because some new technology, and then they don't have the guideline, they don't know how to test. So you can submit the analytic performance from the manufacturer or the clinical performance from the manufacturer, okay? And then all these two items, you have to certify a notary public, okay? And confirmed by the Thai consulate or maybe Thai embassy, okay? And then you have to submit this one, okay, with the test, 170 tests for testing. If you cannot provide anything to them, you only have the document only, but they have to make sure that they have the test for the antibody, 170 tests, okay? That is from my side, okay? So today you know the situation in Thailand, how many number of cases, and then the ranking of Thailand in the world. We have very good control. And then for the COVID in Thailand at the moment, everything under control by the government. And we already have the product already registered with the Thai FDA for many products. Currently, we have 238 laboratories in Thailand, and the technology for the testing that they submit with the Thai FDA, we have the RT-PCR 63 product already registered, antibody on automation 7 product, and antibody rapid test 18 product, antigen rapid test 1 product. So if your manufacturer, Taiwanese manufacturer want to import the test kit into Thailand, and you need any help, you can contact my association. We willing to support and help Taiwanese manufacturer to export their product into Thailand. Thank you so much.
各位厂商大家好，我是马尼拉台湾贸易中心陈明渊。今天非常高兴呢，有这个机会能够跟大家在线上见面。那么菲律宾从今年的3月16号开始这个社区隔离政策，到现在呢已经超过了8个月了。以昨天的统计数字来看，菲律宾整体确诊新冠病毒的人数已经累积超过44万人。那么这个数字是在整个东南亚里面仅次于印尼，排名第2高的。那么在它的经济情况来讲呢，事实上也受到很大的这个冲击。我们不管是从它的零售业，我们例如说这个在 shopping mall 里面，目前的人数，在疫情发生的刚开始，到现在呢，可以看到人潮是稍微有一点回笼，但是还没有大概只有到疫情前的大约1/5。整个的商业状态呢，现在都还是在停滞的当中。我们以这个 GDP 来讲的话，第3季它的与去年同期相比是衰退了16%，到了第4季，也就是目前看起来是衰退9%。那今天我们也很高兴呢，为大家邀请到了菲律宾的食品及药物管理局Ms. MATIENZO 小姐呢，她是负责在这个管理局里面的法规及这个相关规定的制定还有审核。那我想今天她的演讲呢会是相当的精彩，让大家拭目以待。那么在此呢，也希望大家在疫情的当下能够保重自己的身体还有健康。那如果大家有什么需要马尼拉台贸中心这边来为大家服务的，也欢迎来跟我们联系。好的，谢谢您。
Good day, everybody. I am Maria Cecilia C. MATIENZO, the Director of the Center for Device Regulation, Radiation Health and Research of the Food and Drug Administration of the Philippines. Let me present to you today the present demand and import regulations for COVID-19 testing kits in the Philippines. So the lecture will focus on two topics. First is the demand on COVID-19 test kits. And secondly, it's the COVID-19 test kits regulations, how we are doing it here in the Philippines. How will you be able to sell or distribute COVID-19 test kits in the Philippines? So let me present to you the case profile of COVID-19. This is based on the DOH website in October 25, 2020. So during that time, we have about 370,000 cases, of which 35,000 cases are active and 328,000 have already recovered, and only about 7,000 have died for this COVID-19 coronavirus. This slide shows us on the trend of the cases here in the Philippines. As you could see, the peak case happened in the mid of August 2020, wherein we have about 20,000 to 30,000 cases during that time. However, after that, the cases started to go down in numbers, and this is because of the more testing facilities have been approved during this time, and we were able to contain and have more facilities wherein we could quarantine the cases or people who are suspected of having COVID-19 coronavirus. This shows us where is the concentration of the cases of COVID-19. So as you could see, more of the cases are concentrated in the National Capital Region or the Metro Manila area, which is a highly populated area. And then second is in Region 4A, which we call Calabar Zone, which is a nearby province of the National Capital Region. And the third most cases are in the Visayas area, which is in Region 7 or in the Cebu province. So how do we register the COVID-19 test kits here in the Philippines? So since this is a new product and there are no available product here in the Philippines, so we try to look into the different strategies on how to facilitate the approval of all these products that will be distributed here in the Philippines without sacrificing the quality of these products. No? So to ensure that the companies, legitimate companies here in the Philippines, so we have only two main requirements. No? One is the license to operate of the local companies. So only those companies that are situated here in the Philippines are allowed to sell this COVID-19 test kits. So they need to have a license to operate as a medical device importer. And then second, we are looking into the certificate of product registration or any equivalent certification issued by our counterpart national regulatory agency with mature regulations. So we focus on those agencies with mature regulations because they have a solid foundation on the regulations of in vitro diagnostic reagents. So the coverage of these regulations are the COVID-19 test kits. So the machines that will be used for these test kits, the transportable swabbing kits, are not covered under this memorandum, and we do not require any regulations or any registrations or certifications for all these products. So we just regulate only the COVID-19 test kits. So this is under, these requirements are under the issuance FDA Memorandum 2020-006, which are all posted in the FDA website. So we have a special website or we have a special page in our website which contains all COVID-19 updates. So this is the distribution of the different test kits available in the country, or in which we have given special certifications. No? There are about 99 types of PCR test kits that we have already approved. And then we have the immunoassay. And then we have the rapid test kits. No? So we have so many rapid test kits that is being approved. And then we have also approved some test kits, or the antigen test kits for COVID-19. Currently, we have low applicants for immunoassay and antibodies, or the rapid test kits, and more applications for the antigen test kits. So we are also receiving applications for test kits using saliva as the sample. However, we have only one that has been approved as of this time. And then there are more other test kits that are being keen to, because the US FDA has already approved or given an emergency use authorization for one PCR test kits that can be for home use. So we are also looking into that, but we will be very careful in using those kinds of test kits, considering the high risk of all these products, especially which might cause more infections around or within a certain household. So most of our COVID-19 test kits are coming from outside the countries. No? Majority are imported, and the main sources are from China, Singapore, the USA, and Korea. And on the average, we are conducting about 25,000 to 35,000 tests. And we are only using the PCR test kits as the gold standard to declare if the patient is positive or negative of this COVID-19. So testing facilities are using the PCR test kits. It is the government that is basically the main agency that procures test kits. We are doing it through bidding, and we still follow the regular procedure of the bidding. However, everything is facilitated, and we focus on ensuring that the bidding process will be speed up, so that there will always be an available test kits here in our country. So the usual cost of the PCR testing is roughly about $90 to $100 in the government hospitals or testing centers. However, if you are a member of the Philippine Health Insurance System, they will cover the cost of all this testing, PCR testing. So to date, there is only one COVID-19 test kits manufacturer in the Philippines, in which we have already issued a special certifications. Their local production is roughly about 8,000 to 10,000 test kits per day, which is not enough to cover our target testing requirements per day, which is 25,000 to 35,000 a day. So we are really heavily dependent on the importations of all these testing kits. No? We have another local manufacturer. They are currently applying for a special certification. However, we cannot approve that yet, because they are still undergoing product validations at our National Reference Laboratory, which is the Research Institute for Tropical Medicine. So that ends my presentation. So if you have questions, you could email us at cdrrhr@fda.gov.ph. Thank you very much, and stay safe.
各位厂商先进，大家好，我是吉隆坡台湾贸易中心吴兆玲，今天要跟大家一起分享马来西亚最新的疫情报告。首先呢，我们看到马来西亚的全国疫情统计数字，那么截至12月6日止，马来西亚的累计确诊病例数已经来到了72694例，累计的死亡人数呢也达到了382人。那我们大家可以看到右边的这个曲线图，从10月下旬开始，马来西亚的确诊案例数就一直直线的往上冲，到目前为止呢，并没有一个趋缓的一个趋势。那马来西亚最近1周的每天的这个新增病例数呢，都维持4位数字的增长，那么显见呢，疫情呢是没有受到控制的。那接下来我们看一下马来西亚各州的一个疫情统计。 那左边的这张表格呢，把马来西亚的各州属做了一个数字上面的统计。那么我们可以看到呢，在确诊案例数上面呢，最高的是这个东马的沙巴州，有30,538例。那接下来呢，则是西马的这个雪兰莪州以及直辖市的吉隆坡。那前面这3州呢，也因为这3州的这个每日的这个确诊人数呢，都屡创新高，所以呢，目前呢，马国的政府呢，针对沙巴、雪兰莪以及这个吉隆坡呢，正在实施有条件的行动管制令。那么在东协国家方面呢，马来西亚的这个确诊病例数呢是排行第4，那么仅次于印尼、菲律宾以及缅甸。那马来西亚政府呢，它目前呢是用行动管制令以及 SOP 呢在管控这个疫情哦。那首先呢，我们先跟大家介绍一下什么是行动管制令。行动管制令呢，也就是俗称的这个锁国或者是这个封城。那马来西亚呢，自从实施了这行动管制令之后呢，就是禁止马国的这个国民呢出国，以及呢也禁止了外籍人士入境的这个动作。那马来西亚从3月18号呢实施这个行动管制令，那中间历经了非常多次的延期。那目前呢，马来西亚呢是在现在这个投影片最下面，这个复苏期的行动管制令的阶段。也就是这个第2阶段，9月1号一直到12月31号，所以目前呢，马来西亚呢是预计在12月31号会结束锁国。那但是呢，也不排除疫情呢一直没有受到这个控制，那马国政府很有可能呢会在这个行动管制令结束前呢再宣布是不是要继续延期。那么除了这个是全国的这个行动管制令的这个阶段，那马来西亚呢，它也会依照这个疫情严重的地区呢，给予不同程度的行动管制令。那么像是刚刚所说的吉隆坡、雪兰莪以及沙巴这3州呢，因为疫情上一直没有获得很好的管控，所以呢，目前呢，又延长了这个有条件的行动管制令。那目前呢，新的这个阶段呢是又延长了14天，那么预计从12月7号到12月20号，又继续的来做这个半封城的动作。那么马来西亚另外呢，它也会针对这个住宅区、工厂或者是监狱这些小范围的地区，那么来做一个人员管控的动作。它会禁止呢这个人员呢离开这个住宅区这个区域，那么它也不准外人呢新进这个区域。那么这个是属于加强式的行动管制令。那马来西亚政府呢，只要觉得这个区域里面是属于非常亮红灯的情况，它呢就会直接在这个区域实施这个加强式的行动管制令。那除此之外呢，马来西亚政府呢也颁布了 SOP， 那么来让各行各业呢来做一个遵守的动作。那这些规章呢跟流程呢，包括了比如说佩戴口罩，什么时候必须要量测体温，那么人跟人的距离呢应该要保持1米，那么个人资料呢必须要获得登记。那怎么样呢来做一个比如说吃饭要有什么样的规范，这些在 SOP 里面呢都可以找到。那如果您的这个公司呢要在马来西亚进行任何活动的话呢，也建议呢要参考这些 SOP 的规定。那么再来呢，马来西亚呢在 COVID-19 的这个检测试剂的费用上面呢也是有明文公告的。那马国卫生部呢目前呢依据这个2020年传染病预防及疾病的控制法令，有关于这个新冠肺炎检测费用的第3条规定，那么马来西亚公告各种类型的这个检测费用呢，就是如这个表中所列的，分为公民以及非公民这2种。那检测类型呢，一共分成3种。那首先呢，第1种跟第2种，也就是这个核酸检验法跟快速抗原检测试剂呢，主要呢是用在机场移民局在入境的时候，或者呢是这个目前医疗院所做的这个检测，主要是使用这2种。那第3种呢，这个快速抗体检测呢，主要呢是用在居家隔离第13天的人身上，因为他们将在第14天呢来结束这个隔离的这个动作。那么接下来呢，我们要将时间呢交给 Dr. Paul 张，他呢将为大家来介绍马来西亚医疗器材的一些进口的规定。那么如果您有任何需要的话，也欢迎跟我们吉隆坡台湾贸易中心联络。谢谢。
Hello, good afternoon, everyone who are listening to this presentation. My name is Paul, and I am happy and glad to be able to share with you a little bit about regulations and importing requirements when it comes to medical devices in general or COVID-19 test kits specifically. All right, so let's just look through a few content of this presentation. Now, firstly, we need to realize what are governing laws in Malaysia when it comes to COVID-19 specifically or any other medical devices, right? When it comes to regulations. right? There are a couple, more than a couple, in fact, the type of laws or acts that governing medical device registration in the country. Firstly, and of course, will be the Medical Device Act. It was enacted and enforced in 2012, or Act 737 to be exact. It is empowered by its regulation in 2012. And something very special to note is that in 2016, there was an exemption order. I will share a little bit what this exemption order is all about, because I think that it is relevant to our presentation and discussion today. The Medical Device Act essentially regulates all medical devices in Malaysia. Now, anything specifically with regards to medical devices, it will always related to healthcare services or facilities. Now, in the private sector in Malaysia, the healthcare facilities are regulated by the Private Healthcare Services and Facility Act in 1997, which is called Act 586. It was also enforced by the regulation in 2012. Now, for medical professionals, we are all regulated by the Medical Act. There is a medical council that regulates the practice of medical professionals in Malaysia, and it is also empowered by the medical regulations in 2017. And something to note as well, that the Medical Act was also amended in 2012. So essentially, the Medical Act deals particularly and only specifically on doctors' practices. And in our scope of discussion here today, it will also be relevant to what we are going to talk about. So these three are the essentials and the governing laws related to medical devices. Now, that begs the question what medical devices really are and how law defines it, right? In the Medical Device Act in 2012, any medical devices is regulated under this act in 2012, MDA 2012 in short. And the objective of this act is to ensure that devices entering the Malaysian market is safe and effective and performed as intended by the manufacturer. And of course, there are a few steps. There's a need for pre-market approval or clearance. Is required before any import into the country is allowed, export out of the country, or placement in any facilities in Malaysia. All right, so this is in compliance with the Section 5 of the MDA in 2012. So what are medical devices? Medical devices essentially means any instruments or apparatus, implement machines, appliances, etc., and so on, that relates to the use of a human being. The most importantly is the item number one is used for diagnosis, prevention, monitoring, treatment, or alleviation of any diseases. Right? Medical devices are also fall into the scope when it comes to anything related to compensation of an injury, anything related to investigation, replacement or modification, or support of any anatomy or any physiological processes. Medical devices are also related to support of any or sustaining life, control or conception or contraception, disinfection of medical devices, or providing information for medical or diagnostic purposes by means of in vitro examination of specimen derived from any human body. Now, this is how the Medical Device Act defines what medical devices are. Now, related to what we have today is that in test kits, laboratory test kits or point of care testing, say, comes into the purview of item number one, which is a diagnosis of any illnesses or diseases. So therefore, in conclusion, the COVID-19 test kits are, by definition of the law, medical devices, and therefore automatically falls under the purview of the Medical Device Authority. The Medical Device Authority is a government entity where it regulates the community as well as the industry for all medical devices. Therefore, COVID-19 test kits are medical device and need registration, right? And need registration in Malaysia. So what about other laws? Now, we mentioned earlier that there are a few laws that governs together with the Medical Device Act. Of course, the first one with the Private Healthcare Facilities and Services Act 98. It regulates essentially all private healthcare facilities in Malaysia. Right? Essentially all private healthcare facilities, whether they are clinics, well, whether they are ambulatory care centers, birth centers, medical centers, etc. Now, all of them are regulated under the purview of the Private Healthcare Facility Act. Medical devices essentially are used primarily in healthcare facilities. Now, of course, healthcare facilities could be in the private sector or in the public sector. Now, in the public sector, healthcare facilities are regulated by the general order by the Ministry of Health and Government. There's no specific laws for public healthcare facilities. However, for the private healthcare facilities, there's a huge requirement for all private healthcare facilities to comply to each and every services and into the Private Healthcare Facility Act in 1998 together with its regulations. The medical devices could also be used in other places, not necessarily in the setting of a healthcare facility. Right, a point of care testing, for example, can be used in other places, homes, pharmacies, etc., and so on. But specifically to our discussion here today, I'll highlight the reason why the Private Healthcare Facility and Services Act is especially important. I will also highlight why the Medical Act is also very important, because there is a need for healthcare professionals in the picture when it comes to medical device usage in Malaysia. Now, if the medical device is associated with the use of poisons, medicated devices, for example, then it will come under the Poison Act in 1952. Now, of course, as far as our scope of discussion here today related to COVID-19, so therefore, Poison Act is irrelevant for our scope of discussion. All right, so Medical Device Act, Private Healthcare Facilities and Services Act, as well as the Medical Act. So who regulates medical devices in Malaysia? Now, there's this group of people called the Medical Device Authority. Now, they are empowered by the Medical Devices Act, as well as the Medical Device Authority Act, to regulate the industry as long as it comes to use of any medical devices. So in short, we call them the Medical Device Authority. They are a subset of the Ministry of Health in Malaysia. Now, of course, if you want to contact the MDA, you can always contact the MDA through this information here on the slides. Now, these slides essentially highlight the regulatory framework generally as to how preconception of a new medical devices coming into Malaysia. All right. So of course, when it is pre-market, then there is a need for a pre-market assessment. Right. When it comes to a certain products, the manufacturer need to ensure that it conforms to a certain sets of general standards. After a pre-market conformity, then this comes into the placement on market section, where the medical device then will get itself registered. So if there is a need for licensing for importers to license this, then there is an establishment of licensing. Now, for any license provider to import a certain medical devices, there is a certain SOP for them to follow. All right, and all these SOPs are marked and outlined by the Medical Device Authority. Now, don't forget there will be also post-market surveillance. When an item comes into Malaysia, and when it, or any other countries for that matter, when it begins to start using, after a certain period of time, there will always be a need for post-market surveillance to ensure that the medical device is being used is still safe, still remain relevant in the industry, and of course, patient safety is always the priority when it comes to any healthcare services. All right. Next, of course, it comes to maintenance and usage. When it comes to a point of time where the medical device is no longer in use, then post-market, it will also be removed from the post-market. There will also be a regulation. There will also be a guideline for us to remove those medical devices. So this whole regulatory framework essentially is monitored by the MDA, Medical Device Authority, right, to ensure that industry players remain compliant to a certain set of requirements. So therefore, as you can see, from one side, pre-market all the way to post-market, this whole whole framework essentially take a long time whenever there is a new device that comes into the picture. Removing the idea, removing the subset of the need for clinical trials and testings, etc., and so on within the same country. But as far as regulatory framework is concerned, any new medical devices coming into the country, there's a need to go through this particular flow, right, from pre-market, placement on market, as well as post-market. All right. But of course, when it comes to pandemic-related, there's also an important need for speed. All right, speed is priority. Now, when it comes to the pandemic, for example, we cannot wait for a special device to come into the country to take years for it to be registered into the ministry and therefore getting tested, get relevant data, etc., and so on, and to move on to the market. It is not possible. All right. So when it comes to the pandemic-related devices, that's where the exemption order in 2016 of the Medical Device Act comes into the picture. All right, which states that there's no need for pandemic-related devices to follow the conventional registration process, removing the red tapes, etc., from any governmental registration, and they can apply for themselves into a category called the Special Access category. Now, in this Special Access category, there are two ways for a device to be registered: Route A or B. Now, A essentially is primarily intended for single import devices, and B applies to any other devices in any other scenario. Now, when the medical device, when the COVID-19 test kits first came into the country, the manufacturer registered itself via Route A. For one reason, there were no other industry players with such kits in Malaysia yet at that time. Now, after the entry of that particular first mover, subsequent test kits, brands of test kits began to be available. So for importers and manufacturers, those subsequent test kits will have to now go through Route B, because it's now no longer super urgent to get the kits over, but now you have to go Route B, which requires a certain set of processes for it to be usable in Malaysia. So we're going to talk a little bit more about Route B. Right, there are a few processes that I would like to highlight over here. Now, if you were to put in, if we want to bring in any medical devices into Malaysia for any special under the category of special access, there will be few things that the medical device authority will look for. Right. Firstly, if the product is imported, they need to be registered or approved by recognized countries. Now, as of now, recognized countries means the United States, EU countries, Japan, Australia, Canada, or the World Health Organization, right? Secondly, the products imported also must be approved and registered by foreign regulatory authorities through an emergency situation approval, right? It can either go through the conventional way that is already registered in a certain country, or it can go through the flow where the product is registered or approved to use in any emergency situation. Or thirdly, of course, the product originates from Malaysia, but of course, there's no registration as yet, but it still falls under the category of medical devices. And there also comes a time where people begin to donate and give a certain kits or equipment for the use of healthcare. And this comes under the purview of a special access category, all right? Now, if the test kits in particular follow any one of the four things that I mentioned earlier, then you can submit your applications to the medical device authority. All right. So a form, of course, will need to be submitted, and this form is pretty heavy. There are lots of information and technical data that will be required by the Medical Device Association. All right. Now, so therefore, a different test kits will have different types of technical data. Now, of course, the MDA will then acknowledge the application, verify the particular documentation by any given authority. So in the event where you say that your device is recognized and approved by the WHO, the MDA will first ask the WHO whether it is indeed recognized by the WHO before it began the process of assessment. And the process of assessment will be by an advisory committee that is being specially set up by the medical device authority. If it fails, then the device will not come into Malaysia. But if it passes, they go through the process of course, making payment, and then MDA will issue a letter called No Restriction Letter for special access by the authority. All right, special access by the authority. Now, note that any special access category by the MDA has got a lifespan. Essentially, it would not be registered perpetually throughout the long term. The lifespan could be 1 year, 2 years, and 3 years, or even a certain amount of years defined and determined by the expert advisory committee. All right, but essentially, in our experience thus far, the test kits are being registered, recognized, and registered to use for at least 2 years, right? For at least 2 years. Now, here are some of the recognized foreign regulatory authorities that I mentioned earlier. In respective to the approval types. All right, so if it's Australia, then you need to be registered and approved by the TGA. Canada, of course, have Canada license. EU comes from a special annex and section of the EU medical devices. Japan, it must be recognized and approved by the Ministry of Health, Labor and Welfare license. The US, of course, US FDA, and any other bodies that's recognized, then MDA will determine from time to time. Therefore, if your medical device is not registered in any of those or not approved by any of those mentioned in the list earlier, you can always submit your approval from your respective countries to the medical device authority for them to determine from time to time whether it is okay for them to approve to be registered under special access in Malaysia or not. Now, as I mentioned earlier, Route B is the only way to go as of right now for any for COVID test kits, right? For COVID test kits. Now, under Route B, there are specials mentioned that I would like to inform in this presentation is that remember I mentioned earlier on private healthcare facilities as well as medical act. Any devices that are registered under the special access category can only be can only be used by a registered medical practitioner or any healthcare provider that are registered under the respective healthcare act. Example, if a medical doctor be registered under the Medical Act. If they are nurses, then they are registered under the Nursing Act. If they are medical lab technician, then they are required to register themselves under the Allied Health Act. Right, so only licensed medical practitioner, all right, can use the medical devices. Secondly, manufacturer who are not medical professionals who acquire import into this country, into Malaysia, need to supply medical devices to a registered medical practitioner only. To a registered medical practitioner only. So therefore, point of care testing at home for COVID testing is not possible. All right, it's not possible. We cannot provide COVID-19 test kits for a particular client for them to go home and test themselves. No, it's not allowable in Malaysia. Thirdly, if the medical device is being approved for the use of medical practitioner, that medical practitioners must practice in a licensed facility. So if the doctor is practicing in a public facility, it's fine. If the doctor is practicing in a private healthcare facility, then the private healthcare facility in which the doctor practices must be registered or licensed under the Private Healthcare Facility Act in 1998. Right? Therefore, a licensed establishment must be given. Right? Of course, if you are applying it for the government facility, then you need to specify in the notification process which government hospitals or a facility that you are going to use the particular COVID test kit. One important to note in Route B is the Section D of the application. It's called medical rationale. Now, we need to ensure that either one of these three is one of the reasons why that particular test kit is to be brought over into Malaysia. All right. Of course, medical device on compassionate use basis, which means that if there are no other treatment option available, this particular device is the only hope for the particular patient, then yes, they can take care. Right? Or elevation of stock-up situation when it comes to a point where there's so much huge need for COVID-19 test kit, for example, then there's a huge in demand, etc., and so on, then you can always take B. Now, number 3 is design or operation that's likely to support and enhance the outcome of a procedure. Now, note that medical practitioner or manufacturer must provide justification and evidence that the design or operation is likely to support and enhance the outcome of the procedure treatment for a particular patient. So I think in our discussion here today, which is about COVID-19 test kits, the best rationale, medical rationale would be number 2. Right, will be number 2, which is to ensure minimal disruption of the supply chain when it comes to rapid test kits for COVID-19. So this is part of the essential justification for any medical kit, medical devices or COVID test kits being bring over to Malaysia. So therefore, in conclusion, medical devices are of course very heavily regulated. Now, the COVID-19 related devices can get approval via the special access category. All right, so you don't need to go through the general access category, but a special access category can be granted. Now, to apply for the special access category, a person will need to ensure that it has a certain criteria that's being followed and set up by the medical device authority. Example, as I mentioned earlier, will be the fact that it's only being used or distributed to medical practitioners or in licensed facilities, public or private. You have to go through a certain justification as to why that particular medical kit need to be brought in to Malaysia, right? Rather than any other kits, for example, how will it change the current treatment or current diagnostic, etc., and so on. The devices under this category can only be used by healthcare professionals. All right, as I mentioned earlier, healthcare professionals could be doctors or MLTs, or medical lab technicians or nurses inside a healthcare facility. All right, as a medical professional myself, I cannot take a particular medical device license under the special access category, go to somebody's house and do a point of care testing for the particular person. All right, that is not in accordance to the law. All right, so for the special access category kits, we can only use it in any licensed facility. Now, most of the time, those licensed facility will be in hospitals, laboratories, and even clinics. Right, especially when it comes to the idea of using rapid test kits, then there's a need for the particular test kits to be used only in licensed facility. Now, we also need to bear in mind that test kits efficiency, the results output and outcome comes very much not only on the test kit efficiency, but also on the way a sample is being taken. Now, bear in mind that all medical practitioners need to be trained on how to take a certain test. If you were to for example, in a rapid test kit antigen, a nasopharyngeal or oropharyngeal swab is needed for a rapid test kit, right? Medical professionals are required in Malaysia to undergo a special training for them and allowable to conduct nasopharyngeal and oropharyngeal sampling methodology. Right, so not all medical professionals can provide such services when it comes to a special way of doing a certain test. So in Malaysia, the requirement is such that for medical professionals, whether they are doctors or nurses, that who wants to provide such services like conducting a rapid test kit, antigen testing, that healthcare professional will need to undergo a certain training for it to do. That apart from the training, the healthcare professional must also work in a licensed facility governed by the Private Healthcare Facility Act, and the regulators of Private Healthcare Facility Act also make it a requirement in such that for a particular facility, to conduct COVID testing will need to get special approval from the Ministry of Health. So not all clinics can conduct COVID-19 testing, whether it is antibody, PCR, or even antigen. Not all clinics or health licensed facility can do that. Only those that are approved by the ministry can do that. So lastly, as I mentioned earlier, home testing kits are not possible. So we cannot allow a device that is registered under the special access category for the particular client to bring home to for their own special testing. All right, so that concludes my short sharing earlier, that if you were to bring in medical COVID-19 test kits into the country, the best way, of course, is to go through Route B, register the kits under the special access category via the Medical Device Authority empowered by the Medical Device Act, then bring in via the licensed manufacturer into the country. All right. If there are no licensed manufacturer in the country, then the external or overseas importer will have to appoint a local importer. So there are certain sets guidelines by the Medical Device Authority, which can be deliberated much later when there's a need for bringing in the test kits. The requirements for this regulation changes all the time, because it is a dynamic situation when it comes to the pandemic right now. So when it comes to a time where there is a certain rules to be left, then the MDA may change or lax some rules. So therefore, when the time comes for the kits to be brought over, the best is for the importers or manufacturers to consult the MDA authority. So with that, I thank you.